Today we have 15 tips to get you shooting nice high quality cinematic reframed video footage with a 360 camera. The weapon of choice today is the new Insta360 1RS 1-inch 360 edition. I think that's what it's called at least. The picture quality is really actually quite good, and now with a little bit of finesse, technical know-how and filmmaking knowledge, we can get some really high quality shots that do not look like they were filmed on a 360 degree camera, but take full advantage of that reframing capability. Let's get into it now. There it is, Insta360's new camera with far improved video performance. But these 15 tips apply for any 360 degree video camera, and the first tip is shoot with a natural or linear field of view. The goal here today is traditional cinematic footage that does not look like it was filmed on a 360 degree camera. Anything other than the natural field of view will give you bendy lines, and that's not something we're accustomed to seeing on film and TV. If the camera is pointed straight forward and there's no incriminating elements in the frame, you might get away with it, as we do here. Get closer to your subject, however, and those bendy lines become very apparent. So when we are reframing in our Insta360 studio, you're going to more often than not have to pick that natural field of view. In a natural field of view, the center of the image is much sharper than the edge of the image. With that in mind, it's wise to compose your shots with the subject in the center of the frame and keep them away from the periphery of the frame. Given that even in a natural field of view the edge of the frame is a bit soft and distorted, but the center is sharp, we can crop a little bit in post and get rid of some of that unwanted distortion. Although technically we're down at a pretty low resolution, the camera quality is good and the image does look sharp and clean. We recommend you set your camera sharpness to low. If we crop in a little bit there, you can see all the digital sharpening around the number plate there on the car, and it really doesn't look good at all. As for color profile, shoot in log if you want, but it doesn't really bring any benefits in terms of dynamic range, and personal opinion is that standard gives you a nice starting point to grade your footage. Here's an example where I am graded and Alina is not. You can find our LUTs in the description below. The reason we pick up a 360 camera instead of a traditional camera is the opportunity to reframe in post. But why are we doing it? Reframe with purpose. In this shot, we're jibbing up and tilting down to reveal the harbour. There was a purpose to that shot. Here we're jibbing down to reveal this beautiful Ferrari. In this instance, we're tilting up and we're revealing this boat. We're adding some suspense and some interest in our shots, not laying all our cards on the table in the very first frame. Here we're tilting down to reveal the horizon and the beach. Create depth in your shots by passing this tiny little camera through tight spaces. It adds an extra sense of motion, creates layers, turns your two-dimensional image into this nice three-dimensional vision on your screen. Go ahead and get creative with your reframing. Keep your movements nice and smooth, but whoosh around and wow, look, there is the church. I think that was pretty cool at a camera angle we couldn't have otherwise achieved. Here we are tilting all the way backwards. Wow, how did we do that? Well, we reframed in post with a 360 camera. This was fun. Camera sat in the middle of the court, reframing the footage to follow the ball and the action. Some behind the scenes of a more dramatic shot. Up we go! And this is the actual shot. Wow, reframed in post. Another one here from a bird's eye perspective. This is the behind the scenes, and this is the finished shot. Deep track in the Insta360 studio is absolutely fantastic. You pick a subject and let the software track that subject and automate that camera movement. This shot was filmed with deep track. I didn't have to reframe and keyframe all of this stuff to track Alina. And if we go back to that Jeep example, here we've got the camera up nice and high and it's just panning around and tilting up here to follow that thanks to the deep track. This is a little behind the scenes. Oh, there it is. I'm just standing there with the camera on a stick. Same here, we use the reframing deep track to follow those palm trees. One of the shots we do all the time is a jibbing crane maneuver. It's very easy to do, but you need to be careful to make sure it looks like the camera is going up straight and not in an arc. It gets more difficult when you're using the 3-meter selfie stick. Here we are walking forwards and extending the arms at the same time to try and make the path of travel look as linear as possible. In this one, we've got a pretty good result, but towards the end here, you can see the camera kind of tilting back a little bit. It's quite hard to do, but you can still get some fantastic results. The Insta360 1RS 1-inch Edition 360 does pretty well in low light, certainly compared with its predecessors. However, keep in mind that if you want the electronic image stabilization to work properly, you need a reasonably fast shutter of 1/160th or so of a second, and that can be difficult when the light dims. The second you have to start putting the ISO up here with this camera, the picture does deteriorate quite significantly, as you can see here. Look closely. Did you see the stitching error? Well, you had to look really closely here, but let's look at it in slow motion. There we go. Now, boom, stitching error. That ball, believe it or not, is less than 50 centimeters away from the camera, and you need to keep this in mind. If you have elements of your composition within 50 centimeters of the stitching line, there will probably be some funny business going on, so keep things a little bit away from the camera. The 6-axis stabilization is outstanding on these cameras, but you can still see the bobbing motion when you are walking along. It can be very difficult to eliminate that, so you could try a little bit of post-production stabilization as we have done in this shot. Play around with the settings to see what works best, but you can just take out those minor errors and get super smooth shots, especially if you are walking or running along. Long shots can be boring shots, so speeding up the middle of the clip is a great way to keep your viewer engaged. In this instance, in Final Cut Pro, we press Shift B at our cut points and retime that selected section to get a little speed ramp. Maybe even try and time it with a strong beat in the music to give that effect some extra purpose. The motion blur on this time shift clip looks amazing, but it's not present on your normal reframed footage because first of all, we need to cut down the amount of light getting to the sensor, and second of all, the camera needs to maintain a fast shutter speed so that the electronic image stabilization works. If your editing software allows it, try adding some motion blur to your clips, particularly on those speed ramps. Results can be mixed, but I've linked below to a couple of plugins you might want to check out. If you have any tips, do leave them in the comments below, and check out the description under our video for all our free resources, premium content, the gear we use, all that kind of stuff. I think you'll find it interesting. Okay, see you next time.